Since my magic level was now at 74, I figured it was a good time to go and unlock Vanquish so we can use it once we hit 75. Vanquish is a weapon you can unlock after reaching 150 quest points from the quest rewards shop. It's a tier 75 weapon that can be used for any style, so it's actually a really nice starter weapon to go for on an Iron Man account. I think once we have this, it's gonna really make fighting the Chaos Elemental a lot easier, so I guess it's time to get to work. Since I haven't done a lot of quests on here yet, we're gonna have to go through quite a lot of them. I'm going to be prioritizing my questing by whichever quests are easiest to complete and give the most quest points, since I'm not really concerned about anything else at this point. Let's get to it. Well, that was a ton of work, but it was all worth it because we now have our fancy new Vanquish. This is going to be really fun to test out. During all of the questing, I also decided to take the plunge and reset my defense level. I was at combat level 78, which is starting to get pretty dangerous. Somebody at max combat level without a familiar would be level 126. Since I'm fighting the Chaos Elemental at level 51 Wilderness, this means people from level 129 and less could attack me at this point. You are able to run south to reduce the Wilderness level a bit if you get attacked, but it's still feeling far riskier than I'd prefer. With my defense level reset to 1, it would knock 8 combat levels off and drop us to combat level 70. This will make fighting the Chaos Elemental a bit riskier since we won't have as much defense, but I much prefer that idea over getting attacked by a PKer. There are a couple things that this will affect. First is that we'll lose completion of any quests that give defense XP or require a defense level. I'm not too concerned about this since even if it's annoying, we can just redo these quests once we're done needing 1 defense. Another thing that this will affect is Croesus, since I'll no longer be able to use Anticipate during the stun mechanic. This isn't dangerous or anything, but it will be a bit weird having to manually dodge the stun while doing this boss. Either way, I believe this was the right decision, so let's get back over to the Chaos Elemental. Over here with our new fancy weapon, it is so much smoother fighting this boss. I do still splash a bit, but it's literally night and day with this thing. The only thing I could hope for now is that we can see this pet sooner than later, since I don't know how long we can continue to keep our combat level low enough. We ended up getting our 3rd Antipoison drop, which is interesting, I suppose. I was able to grind out the boss undisturbed for quite a while, until I was scared by what seems like another player who was also just as scared to run into me, since they immediately ran away. Kind of a funny moment overall. A little while later, I had another PKer show up and very quickly lobbied before he had a chance to even see my hardcore. I'm getting pretty good at that by now. By the end of this trip, we'd gained some more levels and we're already back up to combat level 73. The XP gain from this boss seems to add up really fast, so it is getting a bit concerning. I finished this run with 1,348 KC, so we're starting to get closer to our next threshold and hopefully the pet. In the meantime, I had been continuing to do Croesus and was still getting some absolutely insane luck. The downside here is I actually deleted most of my Croesus footage by accident, so I'll only be able to show off what I've gotten whenever I happen to see my bank tab in the remaining footage. What happened was, while I was still playing the previous account, I would start my streams off with an hour or two of Croesus on this account, then hop over to the old account. When I decided to not continue the other account's videos beyond its last hardcore death, I actually deleted all of the extra footage I had to make space on my computer, while forgetting that all of my Croesus footage was in there as well. I even tried using some software to restore the deleted files, but since these files were deleted many months ago, I didn't have any luck finding good footage that had anything on it. So I apologize for messing this part up in the series, but I will do my best to update it when I can. After some more grinding at the Chaos Elemental, I ran into another player just coming through to kill the boss themselves. It's always a scary moment running into someone, even if they're not there to try and kill me. A little while later, I ran into another actual PKer, but as usual, I was quick enough to get my hardcore out of there. The majority of people that have come through here PKing seem to come from the obelisk to the east, so I think the spot where I've kept my main has worked really well since they always end up seeing it first and going after it instead. Then, after long last, the pet drop finally came. I wasn't even sure if it was it, since I was on another language server, but I was pretty sure it was. I immediately left the wilderness and went back to an English server to verify that we had indeed gotten the Chaos Elemental pet. The final kill count was 1,535, and it is now our second pet to add to our tab. This was such a long grind that took many hours of almost constant stress, especially once my combat level was getting a bit high. I'm honestly so glad to be done with this one. Overall, we didn't actually get hit by any PKers on the hardcore, so I think my strategy worked pretty well. There was the one time where someone attacked me right as I lobbied, but that was the closest any PKer ever got. I was also surprised by the amount of PKers I ended up running into over the course of this grind. I always thought the wilderness was a lot less active than it ended up being. We basically ended up running into a PKer about once every 100 KC. As much as I'm glad to be done with this one, we're not done with the wilderness yet. Since I want to try for not only IFB, but Gold Reaper as well, we need to get both the Chaos Elemental pet and finish all the other items on its log. The weird thing about the Chaos Elemental is all of its other drops are easier obtained and count from Revenants. So that means our next priority is to get prepared for and start grinding out Revenants. Revenants are these ghost monsters found in the Forinthry dungeon in the wilderness. They're pretty weak for the most part, but the drop rates on the items here are quite rare. Their area is also located in multi, just like the Chaos Elemental, so we're going to be approaching them with the same tactic of keeping our combat level low. The benefit here is that they're far less deep into the wildy as the Chaos Elemental and sit at around level 30 wilderness. This means we have around 20 extra combat levels to work with now. A common way to fight Revenants is by using Legacy mode. This is because Revenants have a mechanic where they can heal themselves by eating food whenever they take damage below a certain HP. In Legacy combat, since you don't have any abilities, you gain a buff to your auto attack damage. The idea here is to try and kill the Revenants with as little attacks as possible so they don't heal a bunch. There's also a few useful items we can get for this grind. The first thing we're gonna want is a Salve Amulet. This amulet gives you a 15% damage and accuracy buff against ghost type monsters, which Revenants count as. This is a pretty huge buff, so it's well worth getting. The Revenants are normally aggressive, which can be a problem since we're not strong enough to fight multiple Revenants at the same time. The Forinthry Bracelet has an ability that makes you immune to Revenants for 1 minute, but also makes Revenants unaggressive for an hour. Another essential item. I also want to make sure we have a Ring of Wealth to be able to teleport out quickly if needed. This ring, or any other type of Dragonstone jewelry, is able to teleport from level 30 wilderness and below. Normally you can only teleport from level 20 wilderness, so this will be very handy since the Revenants are at level 30 wilderness. We're gonna need to do a bit of work to get some of these items, and first on my list is the Salve Amulet. We'll need to do the Haunted mine quest near Berg de Rot. Since I don't currently have a quick way to get there, I decided to do a quick barrow skill to unlock the portal in War's Retreat. With that done, we can now easily get down to this area whenever we'd like. The Haunted Mine quest was really easy to complete, and with it done, we can now make a Salve Amulet. A Ring of Wealth isn't difficult to make, but in order to charge it with teleports, we need to complete the Hero's quest. This is a pretty long quest, and it used to require having a second player to help you through it, but in recent years it's been changed to be able to be done solo. The only thing is you will need some lockpicks in order to solo this quest. A quick and easy way to get some lockpicks is through the Thieving Guild. I knocked out the handful of mini quests in order to unlock the store there, and then picked myself up a couple lockpicks. It would also be worthwhile coming back here to buy more lockpicks over time, since there's some quests in the future where we may need quite a few. Before I could start the Hero's quest, I first needed to complete Dragon Slayer. This classic quest where you go off on a grand adventure to slay the dragon Elvarg is still one of my favorites in the game. One of the neat things about it now is that Elvarg actually scales to your level to try and keep the fight challenging at any level. We made quick work of her though, and now it's on to the Hero's quest. This one isn't particularly difficult, and after a bit of work, it's completed. We can now take any Dragonstone jewelry into the guild to charge it with teleports. I needed a few levels in crafting to be able to make our jewelry, so I started the recipe for Disaster Quest in the hopes of unlocking spicy stews through Evil Dave's section. I ended up realizing that I would need to do some quests that would require us to gain defense XP, so unfortunately I decided to leave this for now. Instead, I opted to spend some of my penguin points to get the levels I needed. Now that I have the levels I wanted, I've made some Rings of Wealth with teleports, and I also went ahead and made some Forinthry Bracelets as well. One last thing I decided to get was the Wilderness Sword 2 from completing the Wilderness Medium tasks. This sword gives you unlimited free teleports to the Forinthry dungeon, which will make it much quicker for me to get back to Revenants whenever I have to bank. I grabbed a couple of my friends and we headed out into the wilderness to work on the tasks. First thing we did was make sure to grab the Wilderness Lodestone while we're here, just in case we needed it going forwards. We then headed into the Wilderness Crater to do what is arguably one of the more dangerous wilderness tasks. I needed to gather and deposit 50 cursed memories from the Wisps here. What makes this dangerous is that while doing this, we can be attacked by anyone of any level. I was definitely very glad to have my friends here for this one, just in case anyone showed up, but luckily for us, we had a very quiet experience. Most of the achievements were fairly simple to do, and we quickly went around and knocked them out one by one. One of them involves you catching some black salamanders, and I made sure to grab a few extras since they're a nice starter weapon for when we unlock Invention. And a little while later, the easy tasks were done and we grabbed our first wilderness sword. Next, we started to move on to the medium tasks, most of which were also pretty simple. We even got to fight the King Black Dragon briefly. One of the achievements required that I grow some bloodweed herbs from the Wilderness Herb Patch, so while waiting for that to grow, I took a break to find some ways to level up my agility quickly, since I needed a few more levels in order to do a lap of the Wilderness Agility course for one of the tasks. According to the wiki, a decent way to level my agility around my current level was catching Clockwork Suits. I'd never done this before, but I figured I'd give it a try. I went and completed the Cold War quest in order to gain access to the Clockwork Penguins, and then I headed up to the top of Falador Castle. This is apparently the best place to do this training method, since it's the only spot in the game where there are only 2 walkable tiles. Then you just keybind the Clockwork Suits and spam the keybinds while clicking frantically to constantly drop and pick them up. I did this for a little while, but honestly I found it really annoying to do, and the XP didn't really blow me away. Instead, I went for the slower but more enjoyable method of just doing the starting section of the Anachronia Agility course. This also has the side benefit of collecting a few pages towards unlocking our double surge and escape codexes. Once I had a high enough agility level, I headed back into the wilderness to finish off the last of the tasks remaining. I ended up running past another player by the lava strike worms, but he was too high of a combat level to attack me, so I just casually walked past. And not too long after, all of the medium wilderness tasks were done, and we could claim our wilderness sword too. With that done, we should be ready to start gearing up to take our first trip to the Revenants. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave the video a like if you liked it. I also stream over on Twitch and would love it if you went and dropped me a follow over there as well. I also have a friends chat in game under my previous account's name, Expired Bree, that a bunch of us hang out in, and anyone is welcome to join. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.